Morley Robbins. Say hi to the audience. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to see you again, sir. It's been a while.
Thank you for being willing to spend some time with us before you go start traveling internationally.
Right.
Yeah,
At least
so
it's not intergalactic, right? I'm just going international, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right, so Morley, what are some of the misconceptions we have around anemia? There's a lot of it going around the world right now. Let's dive into anemia. Some of the principles behind what it is they're diagnosing people with anemia from. What are they looking at? What are they promoting? What are they reviewing?
Right.
And then what are the true reasons for most of the anemia we see around the world right now? And then how we can address that and improve it. And I'm going to give you some very cool stories of real life examples of taking the things I've learned from you and from your book, Cure Your Fatigue, and applying those principles to people and watching their anemia reverse without ever supplementing iron. It's pretty amazing.
No, it absolutely is amazing. So thank you for that. How much time do we have?
As much time as you have. We got to go to the airport, but at least 40 minutes or so. It's you and me, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. All right, so the term that's often used by practitioners is low iron, which may or may not involve anemia. And that gets a little confusing. But anemia technically means that there isn't adequate hemoglobin in the blood. A missing in the blood. Anemia is it's not in the blood. But we live in a very interesting world, and it's important for people to know that they started fortifying wheat flour in 1941 with iron filings. We've talked about that before. And now in this more modern era, there are actually 9 different forms of iron being added to at least the US food system. Some would say it's the Western food system. And all 9 are classified as carcinogens. It's a good thing to know that the iron that they say we need is causing chronic disease. And the meme that runs the planet as it relates to medicine is you're anemic and you're copper toxic. I want you drowning yourself in iron and be terrified of even thinking about copper, much less taking it as a supplement or in your food, God forbid. And so now the real campaign to start this process began with the First World War. And they started monitoring pregnant women. Now, at any given time, 1% of society is pregnant. The other 99% are not pregnant. Half of them are guys. What can you say, right?
Yeah, man.
It's hard for us to get pregnant, or so they say. But so they studied pregnant women in the 20s after the First World War. And there's something called hemodilution that no one is taught anymore, but that in the first half of the pregnancy, the pregnant woman has a fairly normal level of hemoglobin. But as the pregnancy progresses from weeks 21 through 40, the hemoglobin starts to tank because that's what Mother Nature wants. Why does Mother Nature want less hemoglobin in the mother's blood? Because she wants the hemoglobin in the baby's blood, not the mother's blood. And the reason why we got to get iron out of the mom is so she can make breast milk. It's a very well-documented fact that if you have too much iron in your body, you cannot create breast milk, and therefore you cannot feed your child, which may be what they want. I mean, we can have all sorts of fun with this conversation. But, and it turns out that breast milk is a very important source of what? Ceruloplasmin, which is the copper protein that runs our body, contrary to popular opinion. And where my research has led me of late, what's new, Morky? What's new? The ceruloplasmin protein, I've now documented it expresses 9 different enzymes. It's not just iron. And actually the founders or the guys who discovered Holmberg and Laurel back in 1951 documented that it was a multifunctional protein, and half a dozen other world-renowned researchers confirmed that. But it's been demonized, as you know. But the thing is, what's particularly fascinating about it is in 1971, a very famous iron biologist, his name was Earl Frieden. He began and ended his career at Florida State University, started in the 50s, ended in the 90s, so he knew a thing or two. And he was in charge of the program. It's a pretty powerful figure. But in 1971, he wrote a very important article on ceruloplasmin and its relation to copper and iron metabolism. And I'd never seen this research before, but it's old, so therefore it's no good, right? Why am I wasting my time on 1971? But what he learned is that ideally, well, here's the challenge. There's two ways to measure ceruloplasmin. There's height and there's IQ. You and I are about the same height, as I recall. You're about 6 feet, maybe a little taller. If you're taller, it means you're smarter, right? That's how it works, right?
Exactly right.
Exactly. So the blood test that we can do for ceruloplasmin is a height of ceruloplasmin in the body, which just tells us that the protein's present. Doesn't tell us if it's fully loaded, doesn't tell us if it's active, doesn't tell us diddly about its status. It just says, oh, the protein's in the blood. And so that's the test that we're allowed to do. The test that we're not allowed to do is, what's Brian's IQ? What's Morley's IQ? What's the IQ of the ceruloplasmin thing? And there's a way that they can test that. It's a $4 test, Brian, but it's barred by the FDA.
Wow.
Don't even think about it. And what Dr. Frieden said is that when the activity level of ceruloplasmin drops 90%, the body can still function. Wow. It can still function just fine. Thank you very much. 90% loss of function, and we're still doing okay. When it goes down to 1% function, you begin to see signs of the systems wobbling. And when there is 0% function for 7 days in rodents, it takes 7 days of zero activity before the first sign of anemia starts to appear.
Wow.
And what Dr. Frieden made very clear is that anemia is not a lack of iron. It's a lack of iron recycling. It's a lack of bioavailable copper. And we'll come back to that. But I wanted to lead with that just to create pretzel nuts in your followers' minds, because they're like, what? I've never heard this before. And so that's why you wanted me to come, just to kind of razzle dazzle, right? So then we come to, and it's an important thing as we're talking about pregnant women. The fetus inside the womb is not a mammal. It's a parasite. And I'm not being disrespectful. It doesn't become a mammal until it can breathe oxygen outside the womb. As long as it's inside the womb, it's a parasite. And there's a conserved bodily response within the body that when there's parasites, when there's pathogens in particular, but parasites in particular, there's a hormone in our body called hepcidin. Very few people have ever heard of it. Very few doctors have ever heard of it. But hepcidin is a very powerful hormone that can stop iron recycling in its tracks. And it causes the iron to get stuck in the system. And what's very, very important is one of my colleagues who I've had a chance to talk with a couple times. His name is Douglas Kell. He's a world-renowned iron biologist. At one of the meetings in London, I'll be talking with Dr. Kell about what we've learned over the last couple of years, and it'll be fascinating. The first time I met him, I was kind of like an altar boy meeting with the Pope, and then a couple of weeks ago we were trading notes, and it was like two peers. He was taking feverishly notes while I was taking feverishly notes when he spoke. It was really kind of fun.
Love it.
But he's got more degrees than a thermometer. I'm just, you know me. I'm just persistent. I'm a doggedly persistent guy. But the fact of the matter is, the iron can be affected. Iron status can be affected by this hepcidin. And I asked Dr. Kell point blank. I said, Dr. Kell, I'm really frustrated about this low ferritin thing. He said, I understand. I said, I think that when ferritin is low, hepcidin is high. He said, well, you're absolutely right. Now, the significance of that, again, it's a casual conversation between two colleagues. We don't have footnotes after our conversation. But the fact of the matter is, when you have a growing parasite in your belly, it means you have a lot of hepcidin in your blood. And when hepcidin is that high, ferritin is going to be really low. And that gives the practitioner the idea, oh, you are low in your iron storage protein, therefore let me pump you up with iron. And I've had two clients, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, same time. It's kind of a serendipitous event. But their obstetricians misunderstood what the reading was at week 39 in both women, gave them iron infusions. Both women almost died. Both babies almost died. And the doctors didn't understand what happened. The bottom line is the ferritin iron marker, has zero relevance in pregnancy. It should never be used in any inflammatory state. And what is pregnancy? It's inflammation on steroids. And actually, Jerry Tennant says that is pregnancy. It's an uncontrolled pregnancy, which is a fascinating theory. Makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, the use of ferritin has now become de rigueur, when in fact it is very, very deceptive and deceiving, and I think grossly inaccurate. And so with those as backdrops, let me back up a step and would encourage the folks who really like to dig in. A wonderful book is by Jim Moon. He spells Jim J-Y-M, Moon, like the star or the satellite, the metal satellite. That wasn't always there, but we won't go there. I met a guy the other day. He has verifiable proof. There's no way we made it through the Van Allen belt. And I'm like, oh, dude, come on. No, come on. But in any event, Jim Moon.
That's the next podcast. Morley,
I know. Yeah, dark at night. It's like, yeah. We'll have our hoods on. And Jim Moon was an iron toxicologist. It's a wonderful book. It was written in 2008. He passed away in 2016, but he's a treasure trove of information. I've read the book 5 times, and I would encourage your followers just to spin through it once. It's a wonderful overview of why there's more to the story about iron. But
I'm going to be reading. I just made a note.
Okay. No, I think you really enjoy it. I think it's going to make your toes curl, to be honest.
I believe it.
And there's a whole chapter on how iron causes, meticulously footnoted. So that would be a good thing to know. But there's 3 ways to measure iron status in the human body. So the first is hemoglobin, and you can include myoglobin. So 70% of the iron in our body, and there's another 10% of myoglobin. So 80% of the iron in our body is a big bucket. It's a giant bucket of these proteins: hemoglobin, carrying iron, myoglobin, storing iron in the muscle. And It's been used since the Civil War. It's 80% of the iron in the body hangs out in the red blood cell inside the hemoglobin protein. So bucket. Then we've got a teacup. Teacup smaller than a bucket, right? Teacup is serum ferritin, the storage form of ferritin. And here's where it's going to get uncomfortable for your followers. There's actually 5 different forms of ferritin. And they think that the ferritin that's showing up in the blood is what you want. No, ferritin's supposed to stay in the cell. Ferritin should never get into the blood. When it's showing up in the blood, that means you have an inflammatory process, most likely in your liver, possibly in your spleen. But the iron recycling system is breaking down. The ferritin protein is being compromised. The iron is being dumped inside the tissue, and the body is spitting out the protein. I call them empty shotgun shells, and it's missing 10 amino acids. But the test will still pick it up as ferritin. And so the serum ferritin, again, teacup, it's a very misleading marker because it doesn't tell us, oh, is this the heavy chain? Which means it's got ferroxidase enzyme function. Is this the light chain, which means it's forcing a square peg in a round hole using hydrogen peroxide to get the iron in? Oh, is this a denatured ferritin that we call hemosiderin? And hemosiderin is where iron goes to die in the body. And if you want to know whether you have a hemosiderin, ask your doctor to do a bone marrow biopsy, or ask your doctor to do a needle biopsy of your liver, because that's where the hemosiderin will show up. And the reason why this is important is that it's 10 times more iron in hemosiderin than there is in ferritin. Who talks about hemosiderin? Have you ever even?
No one.
No one. So again, it's a very virulent form of iron. And then we can get to what's called magnetoferritin, which is, it's fascinating to even think about. But the iron in that form of ferritin is 200 times more magnetic than the storage ferritin. Well, I don't know. I can't remember how old you are. You're in your 40s?
I'm 48.
48. Okay. You can probably outbench me, like 2 to 1 maybe. I don't do weights, but I'm sure you can really pump the iron, right? 200 times? You can't do 200 times what I do. And we can't see the problem we have with these big numbers is 200 times. Well, I don't understand. Therefore it can't be important. No, it's really important because the magnetoferritin is what's behind neurodegeneration, because they can't see it. And then they think, well, gee, why is this person fritzing out? So we've got this ferritin protein is under the spotlight now, but it's grossly misunderstood. There are very few practitioners who really know that there's all these different variations and that, in fact, it's really not valid in most circumstances, because if there's inflammation, it's going to distort the ferritin number. And this is the work of Jamie Collins, Myra Fields, Philip Steer. These are big names in that kind of research around ferritin. So it's just like, and these are old studies, people. They go all the way back to 1995. My gosh, they're just so ancient. But so that's ferritin, and then we get to serum iron. So serum iron is a thimble. Most of your followers probably don't even know what a thimble is. But it's a really tiny.
I do.
Okay, I know you do, but a lot of your followers probably don't because they've never sewed in their life. But it's a really tiny vessel. So we've got this little tiny vessel, serum iron, we've got this teacup, and we've got this big bucket. And the serum iron is telling us how efficiently the iron recycling system is. Very, very important. And for round numbers, let's just say that there should be 100 units of serum iron in a healthy body. 100 units, that's really good. And here's the part that everyone misses in the world of conventional healing. Or I should call it conventional intervention. I'm not sure it is healing. It's intervention. Um, we've been trained to believe that we need to have iron in our diet every day, somewhere between 18 and 25 milligrams of iron. Do you know how many iron atoms are in 1 milligram of iron? It's a scary number. It's 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 6 times 10 to the 19th. I mean, it's like the number is so big. It's like, again, well, I don't understand it, so it can't be important.
Right.
So there's this crazy amount of iron in 1 milligram, and I came across a client recently who was taking 450 milligrams of iron a day. So
that's a lot of extra iron.
Well, that's more than a year's worth, because all we need is 1 milligram a day. We only need 1 milligram a day. Now, how did I get there? How did I get to 1 milligram? You don't understand. You don't understand the nutrient tables. You've missed it completely. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. So there was a famous team of clinicians, McCants and Widdowson. McCants was a pediatrician. Widdowson was a biochemist. And they were preeminent nutritional scientists during the 30s and leading up to the Second World War. If McCants and Widdowson said go left, everybody went left. I think their textbook is in its 17th or 18th printing now. I mean, they are the accepted standard of valuable information. But back in the 30s, they said we only need 1 milligram of iron, because they knew back in the 30s that there's an iron recycling system in our body. And I call it the recycling system because its formal name, the initials are RES, and its formal name is reticuloendothelial system, which sounds really scary. And it took me 2 years to figure out that meant recycling. Like, oh, well, why didn't they just say that? And so it turns out that you have what are called recycling macrophages in your liver, in your spleen, and in your bone marrow. And their job is to gobble up dying red blood cells, because a red blood cell lives for about 120 days. That's the accepted lifespan of a red blood cell. And it turns out that every second of every day, our body turns over 2.5 million red blood cells every second. And in the course of 24 hours, it's 200 billion red blood cells. So we've been talking for, about 25 minutes. Times 60, times 2.5 million, times, oh, that hurts. It's a big number again, and it can't be important. But it is essentially important, because in 1946, a physician named Max Weintraub, he wrote the first textbook on hematology in 1946. He was at Hopkins at the time. Brilliant clinician. He's the guy that made up most of the blood markers we used to say whether you're anemic or not. And he was a copper guy. He wasn't an iron guy. And he's really. I was in Salt Lake City a couple months ago. I actually went to his grave to thank him for his genius. So that's awesome. That's how goofy I am, right? And there's a whole, at the University of Utah, there's a whole building. It's the biochemistry building, is named in his honor, Max Weintraub. So I went from lab to lab to lab to say, who's this named after? Not one scientist knew who he was.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. But the thing is, he knew a thing or two, and in 46 he wrote an article in the I think it was the Journal of Biochemistry. There might have been another article, but the point is, he pointed out that we need around 25 milligrams of iron every day to make 200 billion red blood cells every day. 25 milligrams, okay. Okay, I got that. That's why I need that 25 milligrams in my diet, right? No, 24 of the 25 milligrams are supposed to come from this recycling system, which is run by what mineral? Copper?
Copper.
And nobody wants to know that. And that's like, well, that really upsets the apple cart. And we're supposed to get 1 milligram through our mouth, 24 from our recycling system. And it turns out that the milligram we get in our mouth, we can't absorb unless there's copper in our gut. And the 24 that we need in the recycling system, the iron needs to get out of the recycling macrophage, get attached to transferrin, and then make its way back to the bone marrow so it can be made into hemoglobin and then into red blood cell. The tissue with the highest, the term is avidity, the highest attraction for iron is the bone marrow tissue of our body. They suck up iron in a second. And here's why. Because 46% of our body's copper, it's toxic, right? You know that copper's toxic. But 46% of the copper in our body hangs out in the bone marrow. So my God, wait a minute. You're telling me that almost half the copper in my body is hanging out in the bone marrow and it's pulling in the iron so it can be made into what? New red blood cells at 2.5 million per second? The numbers just blow you away. And so what I want people to visualize is one of the more popular comedy shows when I was growing up, I Love Lucy. Greatest skit of all time, Lucy at the chocolate factory. And the manager comes out and says, "Speed it up, boys." And suddenly they're stuffing the iron, it's chocolate, but it's iron, they're putting it wherever they can find it. And that's what happens inside our body. And it doesn't get into the red blood cell. It gets stuffed and stuck. And the doorway to release the iron so that it can be a part of this recycling system, it's called ferroportin. Iron doorway, ferroportin. And ferroportin responds to bioavailable copper. And what will shut it down? Hepcidin. So the guys in the audience will get this in a nanosecond. The women, maybe not quite so fast. So in the game of football, who's the playmaker? It's the quarterback, right? Quarterback usually gets the MVP. So it's not really complicated. And so in our iron recycling system, the quarterback is this ferroxidase enzyme that can express either through ceruloplasmin or through a cousin called hepcidin. But they're doing the same thing. They're making sure that the iron can be handed off to the transferrin. And I don't know, Tom Brady, he's probably one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's pretty good at the handoffs, pretty good at making the plays. Who was the most feared middle linebacker? Dick Butkus. He 54 with the Chicago Bears because he stopped the play. And that's what a middle linebacker does. And that's what hepcidin does inside our body. When inflammation is rising, and what is inflammation? It's just a stupid way of saying piss poor energy production. So when energy production isn't rising right, it's going to give off metabolites like interleukin-1, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha. And when those metabolites are beginning to express in the blood, hepcidin starts to be made in the liver and starts to be this middle linebacker shutting down the plays so that the iron can't recycle. And this is not taught in doctor school because it's what kind of car do you drive?
I have a Corvette.
Okay, all right, awesome. How many speeding tickets? No.
A lot.
A lot. Okay. What color is it? That would be important to know.
Oh, all my cars are white.
Okay, interesting. That's fascinating. Because I think it's the red ones that are faster, right? But
that's why I don't drive red.
I know, right?
They're too easily seen by the coppers.
Exactly. They see you on the horizon. So the thing is, Have you ever had to have that car serviced? Do you ever need to take it? And
many times.
what's a typical problem that you have with that car?
Oh, not a problem, but just getting oil changes every 35,000 miles. Yes, it has to be serviced.
Okay, so picture needing to get the oil changed, and the mechanic says, "Well, I think you need more gas." You go, "What? No, I just need the oil change." You go in with a flat tire. I just think you need more gas. Two of your cylinders go out. It's a V8, right? What kind of horsepower does it have? It's got
It's
some
got 560.
560. Okay, well, that's whiplash. So you're down to a V6, and
And
you're
it's a
going.
7-speed manual. Morley, in case you want to know.
All right, beautiful car. So, but you go into the mechanic and say, "Hey, look, 2 cylinders are out." And he says, "Well, actually, I think you just need more gas." And that's what happens when people start to have these markers. Hemoglobin might be low, ferritin might be low, serum iron might be low. I'm feeling kind of fatigued, doctor. And they're not thinking that, wait a minute, the iron recycling system must not be working right. And their response is, you just need more gas. You need more iron. And you don't put more iron in a body that requires copper to metabolize it. And so that's where the breakdown is all of the thinking for solving this problem all come back to iron. And my experience when I was in college, all the people who I knew that went to medical school got an A in calculus. They were pretty good with higher order math. And what's really tragic is those really talented clinicians have now been reduced to monkeys with a ruler. Oh, your iron is low. You need more iron. And the real sophistication of the copper iron metabolism, it's calculus. The calculus of iron recycling it's not too complicated, but it's sophisticated. You start to understand the players and start to understand the handoffs that need to take place. You don't use a ruler to solve a calculus problem. You have to use higher order thinking, and you have to take a moment and think through where could the breakdown be. And that is difficult in a 7-minute session. And so I think the challenge is getting the practitioners to understand it, but even getting the public to realize that they're fatigued. What's the title of the book? Cure Your Fatigue.
Cure your fatigue.
Why did I call it that? Because it's lack of cellular energy. It's cellular energy deficiency that causes that fatigue, and it's always a lack of copper. It's never a lack of iron. And the other thing I would say before I'll pass it back to you real quickly is the phrase that's used to describe the mitochondria is they're called energy furnaces, right? It's a little powerhouse of the cell. No, I'm sure you've driven by automobile plants. They have their own power source, and they're making stuff. And what the mitochondria are doing, the bulk of their energy is going to recycle iron. It's absolutely amazing, Brian. The production of heme and the production of what are called iron sulfur clusters. These are the backbones of some of the most important proteins in our body. Well, heme for hemoglobin, that again we're back to wow, it's 70% of the iron. It's a really important part of our body. That heme is actually made inside the mitochondria, and there's 8 enzymes. 4 of them are inside the mitochondria, 4 of them are outside the mitochondria. Wow, what a coincidence. The 4 inside the mitochondria are copper dependent. Ding, ding, ding. And the iron sulfur clusters are really important for making the complexes of the mitochondria. The mitochondria are making its proteins so it can keep on keeping on. And you got to be able to recycle that iron. The mitochondria needs to pump that iron out of the mitochondria into the cell so the process can be completed. And there's a little doorway. It's amazing. It's called ABCB8. Well, the ABC transporters are crazy important inside the mitochondria. And ABCB8 is the mechanism for making sure that the iron doesn't get stuck in the mitochondria. And what would you guess its battery is? Copper. And if ABCB8 doesn't have copper, the body starts to break down. And so we live in a world of simplicity. You need more iron. And it's taken me about, 35, 40 minutes to explain it. And most people don't have that time. They don't want, well, this is so different than what I was told. And it's so much easier just to suck down some iron. And what people don't realize is how outrageously offensive that is to our physiology, that we were never designed to be fortifying with iron, much less at the level that's considered acceptable. It's one thing to take 25 milligrams a day, which is 24 too much, but to be taking 450, I mean, it's like people don't realize that what it really comes down to, and I'll leave you with this, is that what is the central mechanism for aging? It's iron accumulation. All these longevity experts and people talking about mitochondrial dysfunction and blah, blah, blah. Iron accumulation. And the two people that figured that out were Denham Harmon back in 56 when he came up with the free radical theory of aging. And then in 2004, 2005, Bruce Ames, at that time the most quoted scientist on planet Earth, said, wow, there can be 10 times more iron in a senescent, a dying blood cell, 10 times more iron than a healthy cell next to it.
So we may have been misled. So a couple things I want to highlight here. So we don't need as much iron as we're all being told we need every day.
No, not at all.
The causes of your anemia are not always you are not supplementing enough iron. You need to take more iron. What I've discovered, just for simplicity here, thanks for kicking it back, I've had multiple people reading your book, interviewing, and having multiple conversations with you who have been put on iron supplementation, being told they have from their blood work with some of the biomarkers you've mentioned, that they are iron deficient. Right. So they need to be on iron supplementation. Not a joke. Morley Robbins, and everybody at home, I just want you to know, I told the persons to just stop taking their iron supplement. Right. After months of seeing that their anemia is not reversing while actually taking iron supplementation, 1 month after another, their anemia would still be showing up as an issue in their blood work. I took them off their iron, then put them on copper and told them to do 1 to 2 milligrams of copper a day. Not a joke. Morley, within 3 weeks, each of these individuals who are from other countries and this country, within 3 to 4 weeks, all of their iron levels in the blood came back up to normal, being able to be read on the blood result, but they were not taking iron anymore. They were only supplementing with copper. And there's this displacement of copper and iron and where they're looking for it at, and they've just been misguided, miseducated, that if you see this much in the blood, that must be all the iron anywhere in their body. They don't look at organs, cells, tissues, mitochondria. They're only looking at one tissue sample, which is the blood. Well, there's many organs, many cells where other minerals, toxins can be hiding.
Absolutely.
So it's been amazing to watch and learn from you, Morley, that there's this impact on balancing out hemoglobin, managing out and improving iron load in the blood, various biomarkers, without even giving the body iron. Just give it copper and watch the body then normalize itself again and move iron back into the blood that can be delivered back to the bone marrow, recycled back to the bone marrow to help make new red blood cells. Right. I want to actually ask you one question, though. Mm-hmm. We're going to go back to the beginning of the interview when he started talking about pregnancy, and I really appreciate that. What's the connection, if any, that you've studied between hemoglobin in pregnancy and this massively increased diagnosed gestational diabetes? Does that have anything to do with the hemoglobin A1C that they're going to be watching in pregnant women, and iron deficiency they're going to be diagnosing with copper deficiency possibly, anything relation to hemoglobin A1C you're aware of with diabetes, gestational diabetes, type 1, type 2 diabetics?
Right. Great question. Diabetes is not a disease. It's just another clinical sign of iron overload. And there's a, well, as we talk about pregnancy, we have to understand that there's a transfer of two important metals during the pregnancy. That really, the bulk of it takes place in the third trimester of the pregnancy. And this is true of all mammals. It's not just humans, but it's especially important now for humans because we've lost all sight of reality. And the healthy adults should have about 100 milligrams of copper in their body. Again, 46 of it down in the bone marrow, another 25% in the organs. Only 1%, folks. 1%'s in the blood. It's a very small percentage in the blood. But the thing is, in the last trimester of the pregnancy, the mom has to transfer 70 milligrams, 70% of the copper that she's got to the fetus. That's like, wow. So 100 milligrams of 100 milligrams of copper fits on the head of a 1-inch stick pin. It's a little tiny bit, but again, it's like 70 milligrams doesn't sound like a lot, but to a woman who doesn't have the mineral capacity in the modern era, that draw of 70 milligrams is going to have a devastating effect. Now, technically, once a woman becomes pregnant, the mechanisms kick in to increase copper levels and increase ceruloplasmin levels. Not because the body's demonic, the body's anticipating the download, 9 months from now. And anyone who knows of someone who's had a miscarriage, or if you have experienced a miscarriage, my heart goes out to you. Been there once. It's a very traumatic time. But why did the baby abort? Did you know that the baby runs the delivery date? It's not the mom. It's actually the baby.
I do know that, and I'm often disgusted by the fact the medical profession still wants to determine and pronounce a due date when, in fact, every single fetus, embryo ever in any animal never has a set date or time frame of development.
No, well, they didn't have golf back then. That's the problem. But you're absolutely right. And so the baby runs the clock, and the baby's like, oh my gosh, we're running out of copper. I got to abort. And anyone who's born premature has low copper. It's very well documented in the literature. It's abundantly low. And so then you have all sorts of health issues as a result of that. But as it relates to the gestational diabetes, I'm trying to think of A Big Fat Surprise by Robert Lustig. Robert Lustig wrote a wonderful book in 2013, A Big Fat Surprise, or Fat Chance. Wonderful book. That would be another book for you to read in your spare time. But he makes an assertion. Again, the book is written in 2013. He said, it takes twice as much insulin today to clear the same amount of glucose it did 30 years ago. Wow. So we need twice as much insulin. What the part that people don't realize is insulin is the backup plan. The body's supposed to clear the sugar with what? Oh yeah, copper. And the GLUT2 transporter is copper dependent. That's a good thing to know. But there are many GLUT transporters, as you know. But what I was able to do was, most people have Audible. Well, my Audible is Dr. Liz, and she was reading that. I almost had an accent when she said, I said, what? So I pieced together some important information that came by way of Leslie Clavet, world-renowned cardiologist and copper expert. And he was referring to a textbook, a pediatric textbook of a very respected and used pediatric textbook from the early 80s. Again, I know it's really old, but what they said in this textbook is that children with Menkes disease, and that's a genetic disorder where the copper enzymes and the copper in the body is missing for the most part. And those children usually die before they're 3 years old. But Menkes disease is a well-recognized clinical sign of copper deficiency. In the textbook, it says children with Menkes disease are the most glucose intolerant people on the planet. That's a quote. The most glucose intolerant people on the planet. Well, if it's good enough for the children, do you think it might be for the mom? And so women who are having gestational diabetes are doing what? They're taking prenatals, which have what? Tons of iron, which are then adding to that with what? Iron supplements, because their doctor is measuring two things, vitamin D and iron status. What are the three things they're ignoring? Copper, magnesium, and retinol status. And they are at polar opposites with each other. And so we're measuring all the wrong markers. We're ignoring the most important markers because the research is abundant. You want a healthy fetal brain, you better have retinol, magnesium, and copper. And it's sinful that they don't measure that in pregnant women. So the women are becoming glucose intolerant. They're becoming more dependent on insulin. Because why? Because they're running out of copper, because the conserved function is to feed the baby first. The baby's the priority. That's the next generation. And the baby's going to say, give it, come on, give it. And if the mom can't deliver, she's going to get diabetes and the baby's going to come soon.
And I loved your analogy earlier about a fetus being a parasite. I would like to read to the audiences right now, in case any of you are like, that's offensive. My grandbaby is not a parasite to my baby, my daughter. All right, I just want you to know, I'm looking at the CDC's website right now, and it's an article titled About Parasites, and this is the first written definition in that article of what a parasite is, and you tell me Morley Robbins is wrong. All right, here we go. A parasite, per the CDC, is an organism that lives on or in a host organism and gets its food from or at the expense of its host. It's not. How can it be anything else?
No. And again, the word is offensive, but it's meant to wake people up and get people to realize that all parasites exist in our body when we're copper deficient. It's like, and that's not my thinking. That's the work of Pat Colby and other famous animal farmers around the world. The thing is, we've lost the copper message. People don't realize how dependent we are on that metal, and if copper's off, iron will be off. And as soon as iron is off, it's time to say, whoa, wait a minute, let's back up. Let's go back in evolution. When did copper show up on the planet? When oxygen showed up on the planet. And it's like, the reason why we're here, the reason why we're having this switched on conversation with switched on technology is higher order thinking required more energy. You can't get more energy until you oxidize your fuel. And it's all the puzzle pieces fit. And all we're trying to do is get people back to original factory settings and get them to question this narrative, this false narrative that runs the planet. You need more iron. It's like, actually, what it really comes down to, you become a bigger antenna when you have more iron in your body. You're more sensitive to EMF. That's good to know. And you become more robotic. Let that sink in. And then you become more trusting of what? AI. It's like,
what have we been educating people on for the last 3 or 4 years as a Healing for the Ages team? The transhumanistic agenda.
Right.
In fact, when you get into the ironwork course, it's going to make it easier for you to become the Internet of Things as we introduce more metals into the body, just like iron.
The part that I find really entertaining, we're 5 years post-COVID. people still trust the system. I'm like, whoa, man, you got to run the other way.
You are lying.
No, it's
All right.
just it's hard for people to accept that.
So Morley's going to have to be getting on an international flight here very soon, headed off to go educate people around the world in other countries like we're doing with this platform right now. Morley, tell them where they can get your book, Cure Your Fatigue.
Go to your online purveyor of choice, whichever that might be. I think it's very funny that Abe Books is owned by Amazon. I think that's very funny. Well, I'm not going to buy it from Amazon. I'm going to get it from Abe. Okay. But get the book online, website, rcp123.org. The RCP training is, we're taking reservations as we speak, and you can just go to the resources tab and have people sign up for that. That first classes will begin in July, I think the first weekend in July. And tons of exciting stuff. The things I've learned in the last probably month are mind-blowing, and maybe in a future conversation we could talk about some of that. But I think these fundamentals are really important. If people can really understand the deception that's taking place with iron recycling versus the need for dietary iron, it really makes a difference in how people feel, and that their energy level will be completely different.
Well, I hope everybody watching at home, as they do your blood work, your medical professionals, they'll take your blood work, and when they start talking about iron, ferritin, I hope you guys have learned and taken notes from this podcast. You might want to ask them, hey, I know you just recommended iron because of my iron levels in the blood. Would you recommend copper to me, doc? Ask your doctor, everybody at home, if copper is right for you, and start opening that discussion. And when they say copper is toxic to you because they were literally trained like robots to repeat stuff they want you to tell other people on their behalf, every time you walk into their office, you should actually hand them the book, Cure Your Fatigue. That'll give 10 years of research that Morley has put together on your behalf and their behalf, and start educating the world about the fueling of the human body that requires copper. How about the insulin requirement to manage blood sugar for the rest of your life? You don't need twice as much insulin now as you did 30 years ago. Your insulin is even copper dependent. The enzymes that activate insulin, it requires copper. There's tons you're going to learn in the book, Cure Your Fatigue by Morley Robbins. Thank you, Morley. Anything else you'd like to educate the audiences on before you take off?
No, I think if I could just advise people one thing, please get more copper in your diet, in your supplement routine. It's so central, and it's I guess the two things: get more copper and donate more blood. Do a regular program of donating blood quarterly, and I think you'll be amazed at how much better you feel. Just those two changes, massive change. So.
And then, of course, you can get bioactive copper at the Dr. Ardis Show too. You know where to get it, and you can also get it from Morley at his organization there too. Give me your website one more time.
RCP123.org, and the product's called Recuperate. And
Love it.
I coined that in February of 2021.
I love it. Morley, have a safe flight. Enjoy London and Europe. It's going to be amazing, and God bless you, and thank you for all of your efforts in researching. I love that God even gave you a mind of curiosity to just go learn. And every day I'm learning things. I'm blown away every day by things I learn. I can't believe it. In fact, you just taught me something. I had no idea that Abe Book was owned by Amazon, and I got this book right here.
Yeah.
1880 is the copyright.
Oh, that's the one with Theophilus?
This is actually a Latin to English dictionary I bought on Abe Books, and I bought 400 years worth of different Latin to English dictionaries. You know what's amazing about these books? I've highlighted them all. Each one of the Latin English dictionaries from 1771 that I have in this room with me until now has one singular definition for the word virus, which is a Latin word.
Okay.
The word virus in every Latin English dictionary from 1771 till now, which is 254 years, 4 different printed centuries, the same word virus has only one Latin historical definition and current. It means poison, especially of snake's venom. In 100% of all of them, they read the same way. It's a noun meaning poison, especially of snake's venom. And Morley, if it doesn't read that way, it reads Virus, noun, poison, comma, venom.
That's
it.
That's priceless. I love that. That was worth the conversation to learn that. That's great.
Take that with you to Europe, everybody. God bless you. Morley Robbins. I'm Dr. Ardis. This is everything you need to know about anemia. Ask your doctor if copper is right for you, because your life and your fetus require it.
That's right.
I'm Dr. Ardis. God bless you. On behalf of me and Morley Robbins, go get the book, Cure Your Fatigue. We've told you for years. Get that book. I've learned a ton. It's transformed my life. It'll transform yours and the health of all of your loved ones and future generation. God bless you. We'll see you next time on Dr. Ardis.
Disclaimer. Please note, the following presentation is solely for informational purposes and should not be seen as a replacement for advice provided by your physician. It is important not to rely on the information from this presentation for diagnosis, treatment, medication prescription, or any other form of medical care. Always consult with your physician or healthcare professionals before taking any medication, nutritional supplement, herbal remedy, homeopathic treatment, or pursuing any health-related procedure. If you have a medical condition or believe you might have one, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it based on this presentation's information as the products or services purchased from it do not establish a doctor-patient relationship between you and any affiliated physicians. Statements about dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.